Galatians chapter 6 verses 9 and 10. Galatians chapter 6 verses 9 and 10. Let's read this all together in unison. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And as we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. As you can see in our bulletin, the title of today's message may sound redundant. Yes, it may sound redundant to many, but that is the exact restatement of what Paul said in these verses. As you can see, Paul said, and let us not be weary in well-doing. Kung sa'y buto sa butena, don't quit. Don't give up. Ayaw kaluya. Let us not be weary in well-doing. Don't quit. Don't give up. Ayaw kaluya. Don't get tired. Keep on doing. And that's the title. Do well in well-doing. And I hope natangtang ang extension this dili day redundant. Yes. Because it simply means ayuha pag-ayo ang pagbuhat o maayo. Do well in well-doing. Picking up from its immediate context, in which Paul wrote on the principle of sowing and reaping in verse 7 and verse 8. As we read a while ago, be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. The Apostle Paul here in our text applies the principle particularly in the area of well-doing. Verse 7 and 8, he gives us the principle. And what is the principle? You will reap what you sow. And from that principle, he gives us the practice. And what is the practice of that principle? He applies it in the area of doing good. He applies the principle particularly in the area in which we are to be a blessing to one another. And in the particular area that we can share with one another. In a particular area that we can help one another. In a particular area where we can encourage one another. In a particular area in which we can comfort one another. And look with me how the Apostle Paul here said, let us not be weary in well-doing. And he goes on to say in verse 10, especially unto them who are in the household of faith, meaning among the body of believers. Again, balikas principle. You sow and you reap. You sow in the flesh, you reap in the flesh. But Paul here is exhorting us to sow in the Spirit, and you shall reap in the Spirit. And the particular area na iya kining i-apply ka na to is in the practice of well-doing. That's the title, Do Well in Well-Doing. Simply means don't be lousy in doing good. Don't be lazy in doing good. But instead what? Do well. Give your best. And you know why I want to preach on this? Because I want us all to grow in our understanding of what our Christian life is. Remember, we are family. We need each other. explains why of all area of our life, Paul applies the principle of sowing and reaping in the area of well-doing. Nga naman, well-doing or doing good to one another is a very vital ingredient for the strength of our bond and fellowship as brothers and sisters in Christ. Sad to say, ang atong makita sa mga kasimbahanan karon kasamo, devouring one another, destroying one another. Now, we are but a small church, and I pray that we will not be like into such a kind of church. But instead, we all would have that desire and determine in our hearts, committing ourselves to pursuing this particular principle of sowing and reaping in application to the area of well-doing. Again, the title is Do Well in Well-Doing. Don't be lousy in doing it. Don't be lazy in doing it. Give your best. Do well in well-doing. Nga naman, yes, we already have seen the principle, verses 7 to 8. And then the practice, let us not be weary in doing good. And then what? There is also a promise therein. The principle, sow and reaping. The practice, let us not be weary in doing well. And the promise, we shall reap a harvest if we faint not. And so, looking at this verse this morning, I want us to consider what the Apostle Paul is saying unto us in application to the principle na iyang gingon, sowing and reaping. I want us to notice here how we should do the sowing. Ang pagpugas o unsay atong ipugas o aron natay mapaabot nga ani. If you look closely in these two verses, I'll draw your attention to the portion that says, let us. In verse 9, you will find it, let us. In verse 10, you will also find it, let us. Look with me in verse 9. It begins with these words, and let us not. Kita na to? And let us not. Let us not be what? And let us not be weary in well-doing. So, diha atong makita ang pinakauna sa duha ka pagdasig ni Apostle Paul on how we are to sow. How are we to sow? Let us not be weary in well-doing. Look carefully with me in verse 9. For when the Apostle Paul here said, let us not be weary in well-doing, Paul here speaks first of all of a commitment. Of a commitment. And what is the commitment there? Let us not be weary in well-doing. Simply means, you and I, we are to commit ourselves to doing good. That is our duty to one another. And because that is our duty, we need to commit ourselves to doing it. The point is, doing good to one another is not an option. It must be our commitment towards one another. And that's the most important point I'd like us to understand. Gani, other than that portion that committed to well-doing, we are even told, let us not be weary. Now the point is, it is expected for us to do good to one another. But what Paul is telling us here, nga sa imuhang paghimo og maayo sa usa-usa, siguro nga dili ka. maluya. The Apostle Paul here is not calling the church to start doing good to one another. It is expected, it is assumed that the church and the people in the church have been doing good to one another. Ang iyang pagdasig diri nga ayaw kamo pag kaluya. This is not about Paul trying to encourage the church to start doing well. It is assumed that the church has been doing well. And the point is, he is calling upon the church, ayaw kamo pagka-luya. And do you know why the Apostle Paul said it? For obvious reason, the Apostle Paul, of all the people, knew all the struggles in well-doing. Siya sa tanan, nasayod o unsa ka lisod o unsa ka challenging and even at times unsa ka demanding if you commit yourself to doing well. Nga naman, una, your desire to do well to others can be subjected to abuse. Paminawa ko ninyo mga igsoon. Your desire to do well to others can be subjected to exploitation. Your desire to do well unto others can even be misinterpreted. Kung sa ba kayo motibo, kung sa ba kayo tuyo, These three in itself, igo na nga makapaluya kanimo, nga muhumong na ka sa pagbuhat sa maayo. Uha? But the Apostle Paul is telling us, ayaw padala. Be reminded that it is your and my commitment to one another. While it is true nga naay mga panahon nga mabusaran ta, nga mapahimuslan ta, gani masaypan pa ta sa ato ang mga tumong tinguha. Apan, ayaw tuguti mga kaigsunan, mga kaigalaan, gauban ka nato sa internet, ayaw tuguti. You don't even use it as an excuse. Yes, I know, it can be very valid an excuse. Ako bitang gihimo pastor, niya ako kumano'y batik. I am with you. Apan ayaw o kaluya. Because as far as you are concerned, as far as I am concerned, this is our commitment to one another. Now, the Apostle Paul knew very well the struggles. There will be a tendency also to become weary in the work, and also, or the discouragement ng imong mga tubang. Nga naman, kay usahay sa imuhang paghimog, maayo nga sa uban, yes, nakalanta ka, mura mo kong ipahimuslan, mura mo kong giabusaran, nga murag ako pa mahinoy na bati. While it is true, the exhortation remains, let us not be weary. Let us not be weary. In fact, when the Apostle Paul called us here, let us not be weary in well-doing, he is urging the believers to remain committed to the task. And what is the task? To do well, to do good to one another. This is the task that God has given us and commanded us to do. That is our commitment. And in giving us the commitment and reminding us the commitment, the Apostle Paul went on to give us the consolation. Naigamay nga pagdasig. Look again in verse 9. Let us not be weary in well-doing. And where is now the consolation? For in due season we shall reap. Ayaw hunang igsoon. Ayaw kaluya igsoon. Don't quit. Don't give up. Kay magbunga ra gyud na ug mag-ani ra gyud ang imuhang mga paghago. And you know mga kaibigan, this reaping. Remember sowing? What is that you will sow? Let us not be weary in well doing. Unya, ingon diha, the consolation, for in due season we shall reap. Nagi kay aninghon. Apan buot na kung may pasabot diha kaninyo, mga kaigsunan o kanatong tanan, that samtang ang pulong diha na ingon, in due season we shall not reap. Wa ka na maghatag ka nato sa siguro nga timetable. Ingon lang na siya diha nga in due season. While it is true that there will be times nga imong yung maabtan o mamatan o masaksihan o maani ang imong gipugas. Apan, there will also be times nga ang imong pagpugas, di mo makita ang resulta. Even sometimes, long before you are gone, ayaw pa makita ang resulta. Nga ang mga tao na lang na nagsaksi sa imong pag-ugmad, mo'y makahinumdum, buong man siya sa paghago aton atong igsuon. After all, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter kung maabtan pa nimo ikaw pa'y mag-ani sa bunga. For after all, we are supposed to do good to one another for the glory of God. So in other words, we should do good to one another not because there is a reward to reap. That's why I say it is a consolation. Now, aligli biya ning termino ha kay naanad bitaw ta sa rapol-rapol. First prize, second prize so niya. Mingon galing kag consolation, murag pag-aan na lang buot ba? Oh, consolation prize. Usa ka chippy, usa ka scores. Magkampita. That is not how it is used here. When I use the word consolation, it is comfort. Bring much consolation si Muhang kasing-kasing. Because the commitment in which we are called to do, not be weary in well-doing, is very demanding. Very tiring. Very challenging. But we are called to what? Do it. And so, the commitment, let us not be weary in doing well. You know, mga kaigsunan, this is something that we all must learn. Especially kanato ini nga simbahan. Nga naman, majority of us come from one and the same background. Now and then, we hear of people falling back. Makaluya? Makaluya. But must we give up? No. Gani mga kaigsunan, I am no fool to believe nga ang kanang atorang nahibawan, kanarang atong hibawan, I am convinced nga bisan ining atong tigong karon naagya po nga nagkinabuhi sa pagkakasala nga wa lang mo atubang o wa lang mo dawat sa ilahang mga buhat. Ayaw mo pagpadayon diha mga igsoon. Remember the principle? You will reap what you sow. We have this special ministry to people of our background. Pila kay gayon, hagba, bangon, hagba, bangon, hagba, bangon. Can we not just close the door of care ministry? Kapoy man, hasol man. We can't. We have committed ourselves to it. In fact, to those of you who have been with us in care ministry, it is a kind of ministry nga, I always tell you that, right? Nga ikaw magdaog ka ng martilyo, imong pukpuk si mga. That is how painful the ministry is. Sometimes frustrating. So what to do? I have no thought of closing down. let us not be what? Weary. Again, I am no fool. Katong mga kaigsunan nga atong gidasig, nga atong gi-review, gidisiplina, I'm sure they have spoken bad about the church or even about me. Bahala. Ang ako naging katuyan is hawason ta mo diha. Ay, di na ka magtuklayan. Usad kaninyo dili. I'm sure somehow, somewhere, sometime, you have thought that way. You have spoken that in your heart. So what to do? Gani, masaypan ba ta? Kahit mga ginag-ulong, simple balik-balik na nagdato ka mga ginag... You can't do that. Because that is our commitment. Unya, ug wa pa mo masayod nga inyo ng commitment, learn this morning. We are committed and we must commit ourselves in well-doing. Not only that we commit ourselves in well-doing, let us guard ourselves that we will not be weary. Because to commit is one thing, but to endure is another. From taas-taas naman kung agwanta ni Pastor, undang na ko, sila na ko. You can't. Now, yes, I'm bringing this to your attention, but you can apply this sa inyo sa tagsa-tagsa ka mga burden. The principle is, ayaw kakapoy, ayaw kaluya, ayaw hunong sa pagbuhat sa maayo sa imong isig ka, ingon. Yes, now and then, I also sometimes would really be hard on you, but that is for the purpose nga mo, santok sa inyong unhuna. Nga naman? Because that is what the Lord has given me as a task. No, the Apostle Paul here exhorts us, let us not be weary in well-doing. We have seen the commitment and we have seen the consolation, for in due season we shall reap. Ayaw kaluya, ayaw hunong, ayaw batiw kakapoy. Yes, physically speaking, emotionally, it can be very tiresome. O sige, kag may sa mga mga nagwaya. But you cannot quit. And of course, you should know that as a pastor, I'm not just dealing with drug problems. Many problems in the church, many problems of the family, many problems of church members. Na, dili ni siya nga ako ni gisay-say ninyo nga litaniya, ha? Ato bang makita nga naatay katungdanan sa usab? Usah. There is a commitment. There is a consolation. For in due season we shall reap. Now, what is it to reap? You know, kanang pag-imong pag-ani diha, it should not be taken self-serving reaping. Nga muani ka nga ikay makapahimos, no. To see each one of you, the Lord has brought sa care ministry, unya nakabangon, unya natulid ang iyong kinabuhi, that is to my reaping. Pero kinsa nakabenepisyo, dili ako. Kamu mismo nga nilahutay diha. That is the fruit. Kaban, who enjoys the fruit? Dili ako eh. Kamu raghapon. But that is the consolation. Oh, praise God. Every time natin makita nga mga igsoon nga makabangon silang pagkahagba, it's always sad, frustrating, devastating, yes. But as we see them rise up, kunya nakabangon, kunya nakabalik yun silang kinabuhi, praise God. To me, that is the fruit. Nga dili ako'y makabenefit, dili ako'y mag-enjoy, kamo mismo mo'y makapahimos. And that is why, up until now, we press on. Nga naman, that is what Paul said in verse 9. Look again in verse 9. The commitment, let us not be weary in well-doing. The consolation in due season we shall reap. Now, yes, you will reap. But there is the condition. And what is the condition? If we faint not. Sa mga tao nga familiar sa kanang language sa boxing, there is that expression among boxing aficionados that say, it's sa tualya, o throw in the towel. Ngayon nga na gani nag-throw in the towel, surrender na. Kaya namin, nasa buksidong nakiat sa kayo, bunog na kayo, ang coach lang yung itsa tuwalya ba? Yes, that is what you call itsa tuwalya, meaning throw in the towel. Yes, in fact, it has been widely used as a metaphor, a figure of speech to describe your what? Surrendering, you're giving up, you are quitting. Throw in the towel. Now, the question is, in the midst of all these difficulties, challenges that we face, yeah, it's a tuwalya lang to. You cannot reap the consolation if you don't fulfill the condition. What can you expect? Nothing. You are to commit yourself. Not just in well-doing, but commit yourself to endure and persevere in well-doing. Ayaw kakapoy, ayaw kaluya, yes, discouraging at times, disappointing at times, devastating at times. Look at the condition there. If we faint not, God promises blessing to us in all our labors unto Him, especially so when we commit ourselves in all that He gave us to do, and that we will endure to the very end. You know, mga kaigsunan, it's not about what you have been doing or what have you done, but it's all about what you have continued to do. We cannot rest in our laurels. Natabangan. Understand about that? Inya karon na igsoon. Pakuy na ko. Look at verse 9. Let us not be weary. How can we expect to reap a harvest if you throw in the towel? So some bahin, yes, it can be very discouraging, it can be very demanding. But Paul said, let us not be weary. Nga naman, because of the consolation, for in due season we shall reap. Again, sa ako nang gingon kay kaniha, this is something nga dili nimo ma-expect nga imo madawat in your lifetime. What matters most is you have been faithful in doing what you are commanded to do, even without seeing the fruitful harvest of your labor. Nga naman, after all, the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58, therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. Nga bisan tuod ug wa kitay makita diha dayon nga mga nindot nga mga resulta o bunga. We just have to press on. Because remember the word, let us. Ang pagdasig, let us not be weary. Let us not be weary. Gani, in this case, ato ang mapamalandungan si Apostol Pablo. Nga naman, there was a time nga nibati ko siya kaluya. There was a time nga nibati ko siya kakapoy. No? As I have mentioned kagani nga girain ba? Kilakay, kaluya, luoy. Natagamtaman na siya ni Apostol Pablo mga kaibigan. But you look at how he encouraged himself. Turn your Bibles to 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and look at verse 16. Ingon diha 2 Corinthians 4:16. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. The outward man perish. What is saying? In the body, he is burning out, exhausted, tired, weary. Upon you look at the comfort that he has, the inward man is renewed day by day. Ganit mga kaibigan, by the grace of God, in this time, sa ako ang pagpangalagad sa Ginoo, of course with my wife, then with Ruth, with Naomi, and Esther, somehow they also have grown to understand the work of the ministry. Na ay mga panahon nga nakita nila nga grabe ang yatubang nga problema, they also will not bother me. In other words, kapon na sa sidlag panayong ba kanang lugar-lugar ba, di ka nato sumugod papa ron tayo. Kita yung mga buwan. Labi na kanang mga pangayo, kawasan na ito. Now, I'm not saying to put them on a bad light, but they're sensitive. Kaya nga naman, dili sa yun. You think it's easy for me to review, to expose people, to correct. It's painful. But the Bible commands me to do it. And by God's grace and by God's help, I will persevere. Nga naman, because I look towards the day that we shall reap. Not for my own benefit, not for my own promotion, for your own benefit. Are we following? Yes, I know all these things. Yeah. Aligli daw kayo mo usahay nga kay kamo magkaaway-away mo. Pastor, sa tinuod lang, sige kag libakon anak nila. Yes, I hear all these things. Ako na po sila yung tanan na dili na po ninyo kinahanglan ng istoryahon na kay kamong tanan kay bago ko sa mga mata ng mga tao. Kaya nga naman, sa maayo pa sila tanan, team sila. Ala, magkasabot na sila. Ako sa rin, pastor, sa tinuod lang. Yeah, this is because tinuod. You know mga kaibigan, gikan po ang kinabuhi kay bawo ko how we do shape and make turns for our self-preservation. I know. You don't have to tell me that. But I have to go on. And I guard my heart na dili ta mo pamilsunalon. Nga nakadungog ko nga mo na yung gisulti ng gawas. I cannot do that. But one thing I must tell you is that, yes, I've heard all the bad things. Makaluya. But as a church, we have to move on. Let us not be weary. Unya, ayaw itugot na maintanggol ka diha. Kay dili na ka productive o dili na ka fruitful sa imong pagpangalagat o magpadaka ng mga hulog o mga no naman, at the end of the day, this is not for myself. Nang inyo lang taon para nagkinasin niyang kinabuhi. And of course, para sa himayaan sa Ginoo. But the principle applies. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap. Now, of course, speaking of the Apostle Paul, I'm sure nasaksihan niya ang mga kabakuhan sa mga tao na iyang gisangyawan. We think of Timothy, we think of Silas, we think of Barnabas, we think of Philemon, we think of Epaphras, we think of Onesiphorus, we think of Stephanas. All these men whom he had ministered and has collaborated with him, success siya. One thing about him is he never take the glory. He never take the glory in even reminding Timothy, wag pa ka kuyog na ko, asa ka kapuliton. In other words, he don't reap the glory and honor for himself. Gani, kablihi inyo mga Biblia sa 2 Timothy, chapter 4, verses 7 to 8. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 to 8. Ingon diha, nanatatanan diha, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7 to 8. It says here, I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. Henceforth, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord the righteous judge shall give me at the day, not to me only, but unto all men that love his appearing. You know what he's saying? I'm not mindful to reap a harvest diri sa earthly na ko nga kinabuhi. I look towards the day that the Lord would put upon me a crown. That's the greatest comfort. Now, of course, I've been bringing to your attention our particular ministry towards drug dependence. But the principle applies ato ang pagtinguha nga magbuhat o maayo sa usab. Ayaw kaluya. After all, that is how we would sow. Let us not be weary in well-doing. Now, ang ikaduha, come down now to verse 10. Notice again, there's the word there, let us, right? Now, verse 10. As we have therefore opportunity, look at this. Let us what? Do good unto all men. Verse 9, let us not be weary. Ayaw kaluya. Sa pagbuhat o maayo. Dili, the second exhortation, let us do good unto all. In other words, kaganiha, gihatagan ta sa duty, karon gihatagan kita sa focus. Kinsa may atong buhatan ani? Ang tanan. Look again, let us do good unto all men. Now, look with me closely here because there are a few things I'd like us to consider with you here. In verse 10, Paul mentioned, as we have therefore opportunity. Now, of course, mingon ganito ang opportunity o maka-okasyon. But that is not how the word here is used. Again, listen carefully. Ang ato mga pagsabot sa opportunity nga diin kung makahigayon ka. But the word that is translated here as opportunity is not about chance or a kind of opportunity that comes your way. Like what we often hear that says opportunity knocks but once. No. Because the word translated here opportunity refers to a distinct period or a fixed time rather than occasional moments. And that is how we often understand opportunity, occasional moments. Karang makahigayon ka, kung maka-okasyon ka. That is not the opportunity that is referred to here. Because the Apostle Paul here is saying that the entire life nga buhi ka dinhi sa kalibutan, you are actually given the opportunity every day and every moment of your life. In other words, dili ni siya occasional, nga sometimes pwede, sometimes dili. Because the word opportunity here, translated opportunity here, is the time of your existence. Now, of course, you cannot expect young children to observe and obey. Kapag sa ato karong sitwasyon, you should be mindful and be fully aware that is what is expected of you. Paul's point here is that our entire life, ang kinatibukan ng entero na itong kinabuhi, actually is a privilege by which we can serve others and do good unto others. Meaning, every day and every moment of our life is an opportunity. And this relates directly to what the Apostle Paul said, let us not be weary. Listen carefully, my dear brothers and sisters. Our service to the Lord is not a once-in-a-while commitment. We are not expected to serve for a certain time period and then go off duty. Our service unto the Lord is for lifetime. Whether it be in a formal capacity, holding on position in the church, or in a personal capacity sa inyong pangadlaw-adlaw nga pagkinabuhi. You have the opportunity to do good unto others. Gani, minumdum ko ni Reverend Timothy dito, sa kada adlaw, he would always tell the students, Ignite, mamauli kay weekends, we would go to Helping Hand. And then, kung mahitabog nga naa siya diya sa gate kay sa'yo maglimpyo, sa'yo maglingkod-lingkod. Yung principal ng he would always tell us, do something good for the Lord today. So I do something for Jesus today. Do good to others. Ano? Because every day and every moment of our life is an opportunity. Yes, each day we live, in fact, each moment we live, we ought to be seeking opportunities to serve the Lord. Yes, I don't speak and I don't say often, but yes, I'm greatly encouraged some of you. You may have the burden to join us in our evangelism kaniadto sa wapay COVID. Kapag karon ka, wak naman din ta makangat kahimo sa evangelism. But I know a good number of you have taken effort to do the work of evangelism on a personal basis, on a personal capacity. Ayaw mo kaluya diha ni anang dapita. Padayon. Some of you may have been extending help to fellow brethren, quietly and silently and even privately. Don't be weary in well-doing, mga kaigsunan. Don't be tired. Don't give up. That's the idea behind the word here. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men. There's no retiring. There is no quitting in this particular area of our service to the Lord. Doing good unto others. Gani, from the opportunity, look with me on the enormity. Mayroon ganitang enormity, ang kalapad, ang kadako sa dakong hagit, and how enormous it is. Look again in verse 10. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men. Here is another challenge. Ganahan mo lang ta muhimo ug mo extend og maayo o tabang o do good to others. Niya atong tan-aw nga kani makabangon ni siya matabang sa ni siya nako. In other words, we become choosy. Tabangan tani kay makabangon ni di kalimot na to. That is not the kind of well-doing. It's self-serving. It's doing good with wrong motive. What's the command for us? Therefore have opportunity to do good unto all. Gani mga kaigsunan, we can think of many ways and means that we can exercise this duty of doing well to others. But you know what? Ang pinaka-basic yun nga itong mahimo para sa uban, ang pinaka-maayo yun na itong buhaton, pagsangyaw sa Ebanghelyo. Okay, magalupin ka. Although usahay mo sa niya ng Ebanghelyo, Brad, Pastor, among problema pagkaon sa matag-adlaw, huwag may ani. Kadaghan ang kasugan ada. Uy, nabi pa na ako ganang mas labaw pa niya sa inyong problema. Uy, magalabaw ka na. That doing good, ang pagsangyaw sa Ebanghelyo nandito siya. Okay. Although at times, mismo ang imong gibuhatan o imong gisangyawan, dili maka-appreciate. Kaya lagi, practical, sarado kutok, sarado tanan. Ang among ginamnan, Pastor, pagkaon sa matag-adlaw. True. Kapan kung ilang halag yung sabton pa kayo, mas bililhon pa ni kaysa ilahang pagkaon sa matag-adlaw. Remember, man shall not live by bread alone. Yes, that's the enormous task that we have. It is easy to be nice to those who are nice to us. It is easy to do good to those who we think can do good in return unto us. But what about those that are helpless? What about those who can never return the favor? Kuha na to? Kabangan na rin kayo makuslantan. Unya, ang katong digit naka-suklit ni mo. those who indeed doesn't have anything. Indeed, it's an enormous task. And let me tell you mga kaibigan, we don't have the right to pick and choose. We cannot incline ourselves to one particular group of people, nor can we incline to another. Because the command to us is do good unto all men. Now, while we are given this opportunity at an enormous level, the Apostle Paul gave us also the priority. Nga naman, the fact remains that while we are expected to do good unto all, nga way pagpili-pili o way pili-pili, kapag si Apostle Paul yung klaro, nga with regards to the body of believers and those the household of faith, it must be the priority. Look with me in the last part. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially what? Unto them who are of the household of faith. You know, mga kaibigan, for the glory of God, niyan to bitaw at the height sa pandemic last year, atong balik-balikan, yes, ako o akong pamilya, we do receive some of money from brethren from overseas. Yeah, they give it to us as a family. Again, ako na i-share ninyo, dili nga ako bang iangat akong kagalingon ba? Katong-katong sipang tuyok-tuyok ng ganang bitawag ayuda. Yes, that was from the Lord. Given to me and my family, I trust that this will be of help to you. Unya, unsa man ako pagkuan ani nga. O sa ako lang pamilya, the Lord has provided for me. Unya, di man, o man kayo kinahanglanon kayo, o kan eskwela, o tanan, and so I told him, okay, I called up Alan, palit bugas lang. Kasi siya, at that time, di pa magkukagawas kay number coding, yan ka na siya, kaya huwag may coding, di siya rin magawas. Palintag, bugas lang na ito na yung mga putapod sa mga iksoon. I know, nga na ay mga tao sa kalibutan, nga naas kalisod. Di man nato matabangan ang tanan. But I'd rather nga atong tabangan, unaho na to ang atong pamilya. Some of you may have appreciated sa atong gipanghatag, unya siguro ningon nga, sige lang, pastor, okay rami, ihatag lang ni Suban. Mingko, sige lang, dawata lang na. Kung kinsa inyong gustong hatagan, hatagin. Basta kay kamo, as a part of the household of faith, na hatagan mo. It's not about you are in abundance or nothing. What I want to impress upon you is, yes, let us do good, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. Now, think about it this way. Kung ang nasuod sa kumunhuna, ang atong mga silingan, yes, kilid nga, dilit na to kaila, kanya, wak mo maapil. Ang pastor yun, ang mga bad. What? Yes, it's for the glory of God. Ako din siya ninyo, some brothers from overseas, they sent some money. And it was sometime later nga nakapanawag sa pastor. Unsa may itong mga lihok diya, anak ko nga pastor, mo ni ang gihimo uron dili na mga blessing ako na daw at ako gito nga pud sa mga igsoon. O mao na to nga ni taas-taas tagamay kay si pastor na may naghatag pud. Kaya sa pagpirmino sa pagpanawag niya, it was from brethren. Kunya di po ko kaunhuna ba nga so it was really given to me and my family. 2-3 occasions. How can I sleep? yes. We are given the opportunity. The Lord has provided for us by all means. Ito na yan. You see the point? Nga, mao ka to nga, di pa may makagawas ni Mrs. kadadlaw kay kuding-kuding. Remember, kuding-kuding Tuesday, Thursday. So, mamalit may Tuesday. Palit pa na mo, hinong dumato nga, linya-linya, taas kay linya sa pusiri, kay usaray kaser, duha. So, Tuesday mo para Thursday ang distribution. It was the Lord's provision. Nga gustuhon mo na ito, tabangan ang ito rin mga kanasilingan diha sa But I'd rather extend the help to all of us. And it's biblical. Kaya kung sa ko'y plano mo dagan pagkakonsihal. I know it is not that much, but at least nga ato ka bang na-tide over ba? Kaya I'm sure nga nakadawat siya ta sa mga ayuda sa gobyerno mga kubang ahensya. Basta kay gikan, gikan mo yun tos Ginoo. Paano yun? Kapud-apud. And why is it? Because here is a biblical pattern. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, let us do good unto, especially them who are of the household of faith. Jani, uban na ito, Pastor, dahil sila yung mga pumuntaan na ba? Natin pakatol. Huwag na rin ba may simba-simba, Pastor? Siguro lang, alam mo diyan kung manimba. Kung siya siguro mo dahawat ba? Di ba ni siya sa simba o sa wak mo simba? Inabi na yung ba na mga hapdan na baro? Doon kayo. Nya, dili sa na siya pagpakonsensya na harap mo simba mo balik. Mandato ta, we are mandated. You cannot get away from it. Kunya, buot na ko mga masabtan na ito tanan ba? Kung na ganit na madawat, dawato na ito na siya nagikan sa Ginoo. Salamat sa Ginoo, naapo mo inyo diha. But praise God na, dahil inyo, naapo mo yung nadawat, pwede po natin ang ihatag nga ito sa nangapon mo yung ilahad. Silingan ba rin ninyo nga, wakoy. Nga sa mga paagi, na-apply na sa nimo, let us do good unto all men. Now, we often hear it said, charity begins at home. Kadawat mo sa panalangin, kamo na po'y bahala kung saan na ninyo paggamit ang panalangin. In the same way nga nakadawat mo sa panalangin, among giyan ko dapod. Kung tanaw ninyo nga namoy inyo, substantial, praise God, oh, you can be a blessing to others. Nakuha na kami ng yes. We have heard of the principle, sowing and reaping. We have been commanded of the practice, let us not be weary in well-doing. Then we have heard of the promise that we shall reap a harvest if we faint not. Then here we are told of the preparedness. We must be prepared always. Therefore, as we have opportunity, what? Let us do good unto all, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. Mga kaisunan, as we think of the current situation nga itong iatukan, no doubt, all of us are going through difficult times. Many are struggling. Many are struggling. But somehow, bisan pa man siguro sa kalisod nga itong iatubang, it will become light and lighter kung kita mismo in the body and household of faith will commit ourselves and not be weary in well-doing towards one another. Yes, many of us are struggling. We all have experienced significant change in our lives. But you know what? No matter how heavy the burden you and I, your family and my family are bearing and carrying, it surely becomes lighter if we would but commit ourselves to do well in well-doing. Ganit mga pinsunan, sa ato ang paghimo niya na atong napadayag ang atong gugma, dili lang sa usag-usag ka na to, kung dili ang atong gugma nga to sa atong Ginoo. Remember that verse in 1 John? He who says he loves God but hates his brother is a... Remember the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God, right? And love thy neighbor as. Yes, in such a distressful time as we are in at this moment, now is one of the greatest opportunities in our lifetime to put this principle into practice. Remember what Jesus said in the Gospels? In whatever you do, in the least of this, you have done it unto me. We must not grow weary in well-doing. There is too much at stake. Not much of our personal motives and intentions, but the glory of God, our testimony. And thus, we must press on and persevere and not be weary and tired in serving one another, in doing good to one another. The Apostle Paul gave us the principle and have called us to practice this principle. May each one of us persevere and always be prepared to do well in well-doing. And to all men, especially to them that are in the household